Hello and welcome to computer class. My name is Dave and today we're talking about using images in our HTML. So navigate to w3schools.com, click on their HTML tutorial and click on the images tab. Make sure you open your spreadsheet as well so we can copy down some code if needed. Alright, so when it comes to utilizing images in HTML, you have to use the img tag and then you have traditionally 4 attributes associated with that tag. And those 4 attributes are SRC, which stands for the source, and it has to do with where you're going to grab the image from, whether it be a folder using a relative URL and interacting with your directory structure, or using a server and connecting to putting a URL in there in order to download the image from somewhere else. Whatever you put, it goes in the source section. And then the alt attribute actually gives a textual based description of the picture in case the picture doesn't load. That way the user knew what exactly it was, and or it's also for screen readers, for people who have disabilities, so it would read to them what an accurate description of what the picture is because they can't see it. Okay, so all of that is specified here in the opening section of this tutorial. Now what they say is the width and height attribute are going out. So this is new this year. What they say is you should use the style attribute to specify in CSS code the width and the height in pixels or rems or percentages or whatever you use for sizing. You should use the width and the height in CSS code instead of the former attributes, which are a little bit older, for width and height for your images. Again, whichever method you choose is not really a big deal. It's just we're sort of migrating to this new idea of using the style. Okay, so width, height, or style, if I could talk. Wow, that was really bad. It really doesn't matter. It's honestly up to you as a developer which one you want to use. Okay. Um, Next, scroll down to animated GIFs or GIFs, however you want to say it. I think GIFs is probably better. You can integrate animated GIFs into your projects. They work. You can also use images as a link. All you have to do is wrap the image tag in a in an anchor tag, and you'll actually get a clickable image. So if I look at the source code of this and try it yourself there, this is actually clickable and it takes you to a site, which is really cool that you can do that. I'm actually going to copy that down because this is pretty important. People use um, links like this pretty often. So I'm going to drop that in there. Most images are clickable when it comes to certain things like cards and stuff. Okay, so this is a image as a link. Okay. And then they have the float feature, which is really just adding on to the style. Again, they're throwing it into style. They're saying, hey, depending on which side you want it on, if you want it left, then float it left. If you want it right, then float it right. If you want it in the center, then float it to the center, whatever. Just, you know, use the style attribute to accomplish that. And so that's kind of a key that's becoming, this is why they're saying to use the style attribute. It integrates really nicely with your image code. Rather than having to write all these out separately, you just put them all in a line and you have styles, okay? Something that should be noted, and this has to do with images before we get into writing out a project. I'm going to skip over some of these other intermediate ones because this is an introductory course, but you can use images as a background. And the way that you would do that is actually you would use the style attribute, and you would style a section or a division of your code with the background dash image, and then you would point to a URL in quotation marks, single quotes by the way, in your HTML code. So you kind of inline style it, or you could reference it in your CSS. If we haven't talked much about CSS yet, but you could reference it in your cascading style sheets and do something like this and get a background image to show up if you wanted something behind everything. And that is very oftentimes what people will do in something like maybe a showcase or a specific part of the page. Okay, so you can do a lot of different things with CSS when it comes to images. I'm not really talking about that right now. That's kind of a separate idea, separate lesson maybe. But you can use background images. Okay, I just wanted to make note of that. All right, so back to images. Let's actually do it in our code editor. Now, on my desktop, I want to create a directory structure because I'm working with images. I'm going to right click, create some sort of a folder here, website.com. You call it whatever you want to call it. Oops, I have a little tick mark there. OCD can't handle. All right, so we have our 5 folders in here. IMG. I'm just doing a lot of tick marks today, randomly. JS. Right clicking. CSS. Fonts. And pages. All right. Now we're going to go over to brackets. Pull up that program. Hit File, New. File, Save As. And save it to the desktop right there into this folder, the main directory structure folder, and name it index.html. Okay, so now it is showing up like that. Awesome. Now the main problem is we're going to link to a photo and we don't have anything in our IMG folder here. So we want to double click and go into that and put something into this folder. So here's my Pacific Rim Uprising folder into Pacific Rim. I'm just gonna, I downloaded a folder ahead, a photo ahead of time. Just go ahead and download one for yourself or pull one off your computer. I'm gonna throw it in there. And this background is 1920 by 1080, it should be noted, which is in pixels. All right, so it's in my directory structure. I have my code there, and now I'm gonna start writing. Okay, so usually to speed things up, what I do is I go to the home section of this tutorial here and just scroll and grab a basic HTML page right off the bat. And then I can go back to my images section here. Okay, so let's just drop that in, do a couple treeing effects, pushing things into where they're supposed to be. All right, so now that looks pretty good. Okay, and let's just say this is HTML images. Okay, don't really need this. All right, so let's put in an image using the IMG tag and then our source src equals, and we said in our IMG folder slash, and again, when we start pointing to things, notice how the relative URL kind of takes over and shows us we have a Pacific Rim Uprising JPEG in there. Now, if you aren't seeing this, it's probably because you didn't save your document, and or it's possible that you don't have anything in the folder. So that's happened to me multiple times. So then I have my alt, and I want to make sure that I give an accurate description of this, and it's Pacific Rim. And then I'm not going to use the height and the width, but you can use that if you want to. But I'm going to use the style. It's equal to, and then I'm going to close it. I'm just going to grab what they put down in the style section. Let's see what size they suggested right off the bat, right? Width and height. That's just easier to do. Okay, so they're doing things 500 by 600. Well, let's see what that actually looks like, okay? So we have an image inserted. Now before we get out of this, let's actually make this into what they did, which was a link, okay? And I want to do that because it's pretty sophisticated thing. Now they have a you have to put a destination for the link. So let's just put https:// www.google.com, and then close the tag off on this side, /a, again, tree this inward. Okay, so now this should take us to this web address when we click on the Pacific Rim Uprising image, which is going to be a width of 500 pixels by height. Let's just make it square. That'll make it look really ugly. All right. Let's do that. So going into our website, double click on the index file. And there it is, a basic HTML page. Wow, he is really tall because he's squinched. Of course, it's not 1920 by 1080 like we thought. If you click it, notice it goes to Google. It's using the image as a link, which is pretty dang cool if you think about it. We wrote that. And so that's kind of how images are used in HTML pages. Again, like I said, you can use them as backgrounds, but that's more of a CSS thing, and maybe we'll cover that in a different lesson in the future when we talk about CSS. But for now, for HTML, this will do it. Hopefully you have given this video a thumbs up and liked it, and also subscribe to the channel to get more content. And as always, I will see you in the next video.